Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our first Top Selling Master Plan webinar with Mollie Carmichael and Tim Sullivan, yours truly. I'll introduce Mollie appropriately in just a moment, but we're really excited about where we're headed with this kind of research. And as I think you know, we'll jump to the next slide and give you guys a sense of what we're thinking. And also before we begin, please submit your questions because we pay attention and they also help Mollie and I as we look forward and we evolve the research. We adapt to what you guys are asking us, and the recording will be available if you're on this and you can share it with your group. Now, a couple things that we want to make sure you know. From an agenda standpoint, I want you to pay attention to the fact that we're going to show you a top 10. And actually, Mollie, let's jump back to the agenda for a second. We're going to show you a top 10, and there are lists out there about master plan communities, but we're trying to dive deeper. We're trying to go into the rationale for what works, what doesn't. And while you hear what Mollie talks about today, notice where these communities are. Also pay attention to maybe where they aren't. There could be some opportunities there. That'll be interesting to see how you look at it. Secondarily, notice the builders. Which builders are where? Which builders are great master plan community teammates? And keep in mind, we've got about 900 master plans that we are tracking. And Mollie was showing a little bit something about the MPC 100 that we've got going forward and the published research work we're going to do. But now let's dive into a little bit about us. Now, I saw this slide briefly. Just note that we are here to help. We've got the data that is so deep that's tracking housing. We've got our advisory team across the country. We're doing segmentation work and deep dives into land banking, population growth. We have an entire multifamily group here to help you that's led by Kimberly Byram. But you can see right here, this is just some of the stuff that we're doing. And we've got other things we want to help you with. When you think about the next slide, you can get a sense of the way that we'll engage with you. Now, coming up in just a couple of weeks, we'd love to have you with us at the Build to Rent World. I sent something out on LinkedIn yesterday. Reports of the Build to Rent world the reports of the demise in the Build to Rent world are greatly exaggerated, much like Mark Twain said when he read his own obituary. We'd love to have you there. Builder 100 is probably the preeminent program in housing. Please join us there. That's May 6th through 8th. And then Future Place, this is where Mollie and I and our team dive deeply into not just the future of master plan communities, but what we're building and why. Let's move on. Now, if you guys are interested in a market that you're about to dive into, we encourage you to get online, look at the market snapshots. We can get you one of these for free. Just look at the ZondaHome.com market snapshot. We'd be happy to share one of those with you. It starts your due diligence. Furthermore, a couple of other things to think about. Our enterprise, which you'll hear more from Mollie about this, but our enterprise program is now tracking master plans, and we're deep diving into 900. We've got pieces of 1200, and go back to that point I made about our MPC 100. Mollie will dive into that in a second. And Mollie, let's show them a little bit more. With Livable, which is our listing service, we've got U-Tour now, and U-Tour allows self-guided home tours. And the builders that are using this have found unbelievably high conversion rates. And it allows a consumer to access a home on their time. So please check into U-Tour. It's an unbelievably helpful format and helps the home buying process be frictionless. All right, Mal, what else do we have here? It's the agenda again. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce Mollie Carmichael. And if you're lucky enough to have worked with somebody like I've worked with Mollie, we go back decades and we've worked together in a couple different programs, a couple different companies. She's even been a client and I've been a client of hers. But there's two things I want you to know about Mollie. The first one is as a human being, she is an incredible mom and wife, and she is committed to her family. I know her family. If you ever bring up her husband or her sons, you will see the sun rise in her face. But the second part is professionally. Mollie is the single best person that I've ever met when it comes to segmentation of master plans. Or let's just say segmentation, product development, visualization, floor plan work. And our whole team is really good at it. I've been doing it my whole career, but I think Mollie is the best. And that's why she's leading our master plan community effort and why you're in for a treat on the findings today. Mollie, if you would, please step in and take over the virtual stage.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks so much. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. We have so much to talk about as always, but as we wrap up the year end, we're going to look at the last year for top selling master plans. We are going to focus on sales only. And as all of you know, we look at the full picture of sales, starts, and closings. But as we wrap up this last year, we're going to take a quick peek at sales only. And then we will come out at the beginning of February with our MPC 100. That's going to show all the MPCs, but it's going to give you that full picture. And we'll talk a little bit about that. We're also going to show you which master plans drove the highest value, and we're measuring that based on price per square foot. And then we're going to look back at some of those top innovations that worked. I reached out to several of the master plan developers that made the top 10 and even in some in the top 25, looking at which master plans are coming and what really worked last year. What are we looking at ahead, and what should you guys be thinking about as far as trends go? And then last but not least, we're going to look at where are the future of MPCs coming, and some of the innovations there. And we're going to highlight a couple of master plans there, some very notable ones, and then we'll wrap up from there. So again, as I mentioned, we typically look at the full picture, which is sales, starts, and closings. For purposes of this report, as we just wrap up for last year, we're going to look at sales only and make a comparison from 2022 to 23 and what made that up. As we get to February, as I mentioned, we're going to come out with our MPC 100, and it's going to have reported sales, starts, and closings. What I love about our list is everything's double validated from starts to closings, all of that. And I do believe that sales are a reflection of what's happening in the market, but not the full picture, because cancellations happen and the market shifts and all things like that. Starts obviously represents, those are land sales for the developer. So to me, that's revenue reported to the developer, represents developer success, and closings really represents, in my opinion, the builder success. That's their revenue, and that's sort of representation of their success. So that's coming. Look for that early February. So let's dive into just a comparison. We're just going to do a benchmark to 2022. As we look at those, these were our top 10 developers. As you can see, they're in the Smile States. They're in the South from California, Las Vegas, Texas, Florida, and of course, in the Carolinas, one there. Now, as we compare that to 2023, who won the horse race? Horse for 23, no big surprises in number one. We've got the Villages. Number two, we've got Lakewood Ranch, but some changes as we start to go down that list and who's really sort of climbing up and sort of jumped ahead. And Centerra is one of them, I think, that's really interesting to look at. It's one of the only master plans in this top 10 that doesn't have, 10,000 plus units. They've got just a little over 5,000 homes. But how they've approached it, as you might imagine, there's an affordability play there. But more than that, we're going to talk about the details as we look at these. So as you compare 2023 to 2022, if you look at the table on the right, if the color is that golden color, they stayed in the same position. Now, the ones that moved up, Centerra moved up, Bridgeland moved up, Cadence moved up, and Welland Park made it to the top 10 this year. So congratulations. And if you haven't seen Welland Park, it's really fantastic. It's a complete transformation of what was once known as West Villages. Who dropped down a little bit is Summerlin, still, a very well done master plan seen for many, many years. It's been out there. And then Babcock Ranch and Silverleaf. So let's dive in. You can see now the top 25, again, same color coding there as you look at it throughout the country. It's still, even when we get to the 25, staying very much in those Smile States. And when we compare that to actually our top market ranking, you can see, and I'm gonna show you quarter three to quarter four. This is something Allie and her team, they're doing a fantastic job of trying to uncover every fact possible and report to you and actually predict where the trends are going by these different markets. Well, you can actually see some of that as you compare quarter three to quarter four, which I'll show you. But you're starting to see some of these markets drop to average and even slightly underperforming as we go to quarter four. So let's look at that. When you compare quarter three to quarter four, when you look to the left, most of those yellows or those averages started to drop to more challenging markets or slightly underperforming or underperforming when we got to quarter four. Now, why was that? Obviously, we had an increase in interest rates, and we had more challenging times. The fourth quarter does tend to be a little bit more challenging, but it is interesting as you start to see some of this. There's somewhat of a predictive nature of this. But as we look to the next year, we're actually going to see um, when we look at falling rates, I mean, rates are coming down. We're seeing continued buy downs out there, and we do have low supply conditions. So we do expect 2024, albeit we're getting into some more challenging times. When you compare that to where our top master plans have been and where they are, you can start to see, many of those are still in the green, some in the yellow, but overall performing. We also compared the top performing master plans to our sales index. And you'll start to see, so for the Inland Empire, Ontario Ranch or Summerlin or Tampa, that's Lakewood Ranch. And in Houston, there's several in Houston. And while the villages aren't in Orlando, certainly very close there out in Ocala, you'll start to see the year-over-year sales index looks pretty good for these. Some other great surprises as we looked at those, when you look at markets like Phoenix, which has really been struggling, Denver's been struggling, Sacramento's been struggling, and Seattle's been struggling. Again, as we look at that year-over-year index, we're starting to see some more positive numbers there. Now let's look at our top master plans. We're going to go through all top 10. I tried to go through and pull out some of the big facts. Some of these are a little bit different to what we've reported, but I'm going to stay real high level on most of these. So number one, of course, no big surprise, the villages. The big why here is it's not necessarily a location. It's a very inland location if you haven't been there, but it is rich with, it feels coastal, right? So it may not be coastal, but they brought a lot of water there. It's an inland location, so it allows for great affordability, and it has amenities like Disneyland. In fact, I've heard that quoted. There's 53 golf courses. There's 3 central retail centers. There's music every single day in those squares at 3 p.m. Multimodal trails, so you never have to get into a car again. And it is all age restricted. There are some villages outside very close to that aren't, but the villages is age restricted. So it's kind of again, a Disneyland for adults. The other big thing, as I mentioned in that summary, is most of the homes are priced under 400,000. When you look at the actual absorptions here, you'll see that price point for people moving from the Midwest looking for sunshine, they're still very affordable, and it's a great place to visit. It's a great place to live. The next one we featured at Future Place this year, fantastic. If you haven't been to Lakewood Ranch, you have to get out there. They've got several different villages. The entire community will make up just under 50,000 homes, and homes range a wide range, 170,000 to over 3 million, with a wide range of sizes from 1,040 to 5,363. There's 19 different villages. There's 50 neighborhoods today selling. They're mostly under 500,000. So again, very affordable, but a lot of choices and a lot of lifestyle choices. Now, the top 2 villages that sold for them this year, talking to the team there, Star Farms had 280 sales. So compare that to some of those smaller master plans by comparison. It's a multi-generational neighborhood. Azario at Esplanade had 245 sales, but by comparison, you'll see that Star Farms had volume builders like D.R. Horton, and they had higher sales because they had towns and some smaller detached floor plans. I suspect we're going to see a lot more of that coming in to 2024 and 2025 as consumers are realizing the impact of interest rates as they continue to stare at that monthly payment and realize, wow, times have really changed. Azaria Esplanade, though, is a little bit more of a luxury play. It's bundled golf, it's resort amenities. It has a culinary center, for example. For 2024, Lakewood Ranch has 9 new villages also coming. And so you can see this wide variety of 50 new neighborhoods selling throughout this community. There's a lot to choose from at Lakewood Ranch. Now, as we move to Sonterra, this is one of the unique of the top 10, which I think is fascinating. It's just under 6,000 homes. And so prices range from the mid twos to the mid $700,000 price point, but most of their price points are extremely affordable. So, in sizes start at 1,200 square feet. It's also one of the only master plans that doesn't have any attached. So there's 38 neighborhoods, again, mostly under 350,000. It's a Katy location, so it's near that, huge wealth of jobs along the energy corridor there. There's water everywhere in this community when you look at the site plan. It's highly amenitized, so in addition to the water, there's many homes actually sitting on bodies of water, things like that. And it's the best-selling community that has most of its plans under 350,000. So you can see actually all of those different price points here as you look at this and you sort of scan through this. But again, all single family detached, all at extremely affordable price points in a great location for the Houston market. Now, as we look at Summerlin, this continues to be in the top 10. Very well designed, an excellent team driving this, many villages throughout. They now have their own stadium. They have their own little uptown, downtown, and all kinds of different things throughout this community. But again, multiple villages with 33 different neighborhoods selling today. They've got affordable price points. And compared to California, this is definitely a magnet for California residents, especially because it's a no tax state. So there's a big draw there. It's highly amenitized with all kinds of different golf courses and different kinds of amenities as well, and touches of water throughout, but certainly with drought conditions and things like that, they can't play off of that too much. But it definitely is an A location if you're going to live in Las Vegas. Again, better on schools, better on amenities, you name it. And of course, surrounded by these really great mountain views. So again, here's a view of their wide variety of segmentation. So again, as you can see, they're highly segmented all the way up to well over $3 million, starting in the low fours. Number 5 is Bridgeland. And if you look at this, this is in Cypress, Texas. Again, another one with many, many different villages. They've got 35 active product lines. They've got affordable price points with over 20 product lines starting from the 300s and 400s. Homes are primarily in the 1,500 to 2,500 square feet. I would tell you, you're going to see that trend amongst all of the top 10. I would tell you it's also very consistent with our consumer research. The most desired size of a home is always 1,500 to 2,500. What is unique is in Texas, everything tends to be about 500 square feet bigger when it comes to home sizes. And in this particular case, you'll see most of these homes are in that 1,500 to 2,500. And again, as we mentioned, highly amenitized. But you can actually see the wide range of product here. There definitely are quite a few homes, though, ranging over 3,000 square feet for those that want the big house. Moving to Ontario Ranch. Now, this isn't a typical master plan where the whole thing is master planned together. Many of these small villages have been sold off to builders, and those builders have managed what we would reference as a village in this particular case. There's about 15,000 just shy of that for the whole community. But to live in the Southern California market and to be able to find a home, gosh, even under 600,000, yeah, that's considered affordable here. So your homes ranging from 200,000 to just over $1 million in this location, which is a big deal for this area. So there's several different villages with all kinds of different lifestyles. Again, it's really serving as an affordable play if you don't want to move outside the state. And you can stand the state taxes. We're highest in the country. I don't know if there's an award for that, but we won it. We have great access to jobs in the Inland Empire, Orange County, Los Angeles. Again, it's an hour kind of to all of those directions. And if you're in the very southern portion of the Inland Empire, You can actually get to San Diego too. And sometimes there is a commute, especially with all the people working at home these days. So every actively selling product line has a floor plan under 2,400 square feet. So you can see not quite the 20 to 30 or in some cases 40 product lines, but quite a few product lines here. And most importantly, having anything under sort of that $600,000 price point, it's a pretty big deal for California. So looking at number 7, we're looking at Cadence for Las Vegas. They have planned just over 15,000 homes. And again, I would tell you this is a very affordable price point for Las Vegas as well. So home prices starting in the mid twos to the mid threes. And they've got 25 actively selling product lines. It's again another affordable location for Californians to come in with no income tax. You've got, affordable price points as we're going to show you. And all but one of those product lines, again, has a plan under 2,500 square feet. So you can actually see the wide range. You look at how many floor plans actually are under 2,000 square feet for this location, all seeking to afford, to provide an affordable home to local residents as well as people just seeking affordable housing from surrounding states. So hugely popular there. Babcock Ranch. This is by far one of my favorite master plans over the last decade. Just tracking all of these. They have almost 20,000 homes planned here, but it's so neat to watch this completely evolve into this really great place. There's many villages within this master plan, and I think this is going to be one of the neatest communities as it builds out. So again, strong affordability with price points starting in the 200s. Most of the products are starting in the 400s or below. A lot of technology here. So you've got solar everywhere. You have a work hub. You have a really phenomenal fitness. So a lot of wellness features throughout. Walking trails that kind of surround and embrace sort of these bodies of water that make it feel like a coastal location. They have a charter school, which is phenomenal. They have uh, a trolley or driverless vehicle. It is manned at the time at this time, but taking kids to school. The school, unfortunately, literally was so great it got filled up immediately. So they're continuing to expand there. They've got active adult, you name it. So we haven't listed all of them because there's so many great things here. But they also have 30 plus actively selling communities. And again, a phenomenal amenity package, extremely well thought out. And I even really like how they phase the retail. For those of you struggling to phase retail in or what to do there, they did a really great job in that category as well. Again, for an inland location, like the villages, they really brought sort of that coastal feel to an inland location. I remember when we first drove out there, it was like, oh my gosh, who's going to drive here? And then when it just, the designs started to really set in, it's like, oh, it's fantastic. So anyways, you can see actually the price points here in the low to mid twos, going all the way up to, in some cases, I know that they have custom homes selling here over $1 million. So while that's not reflected here, that would be done more in the custom category. But there's a wide variety of price points. And again, the homes and the product lines out here have been extremely successful. Number 9, Silverleaf. I had the pleasure of visiting Silverleaf and Nocatee in the last couple of months. And again, this is another great master plan that's building out. One of the keys to success on this one is they have a low to no HOA. They have planned out here about close to 20,000 homes. They have a retail center that's coming in. They have quite a bit of office space coming in. I think it's over 1 million square feet of office coming, but a pretty phenomenal, and this will, I think, change this area for sure. So they have 31 actively selling product lines. They have strong affordability again with prices starting in the 300s. They have homes mostly sized under 2,500 square feet. Again, really affordable. A lot of single story product in this particular community. Water pretty much everywhere. Water parks galore in this area, all up and down Florida. you're looking for phenomenal water parks, just go to Florida. They're phenomenal everywhere. Um, and you can actually see their overall segmentation across the board. Again, a lot of price points under that $500,000 price point, but a wide variety of price points for sure. Last but not least, another one of my favorites is Welland Park. Again, I love I'm going to be honest, I did not love West Villages in its original form, and Rick Severance and his team completely transformed it. It's now Welland Park. They have a huge retail center that's really brought this place to life. It was largely age targeted and age restricted, and they've now really diversified this with a lot more family segmentation. It's so much more diversified from a population and life stage perspective, and so much of that was in their programming and the lifestyle. Um, so you can start to see, some of the big things there. It's 28 actively selling product lines. Again, strong affordability, starting in the 200,000s. It was largely an affordable play. And now with all of the lifestyle that they brought to this location, again, if you haven't been there, make it out there. It's phenomenal. The homes are mostly sized under 2,500 square feet, and the amenities are fantastic. It's the other big thing about this, different from the villages, is it's like 5 miles from the ocean. But when you went there back in the West Villages day, there still was nothing great there on the ocean. But this, again, has completely transformed not just this master plan, but the entire place. They should benefit from significant appreciation and already have. So when we look at their overall segmentation, you can see that here. A lot of the homes, again, are under that 2,500 square feet. You have a lot more single story here. But now we're seeing home sizes all the way up to 3,657. So we're seeing more family segmentation and some of that as well. So those are our top 10. We're going to jump into now one that I think is pretty interesting, which is we're going to also look at the top master plans by value. And this is just a high level, which I thought was kind of fun to see. Going back to some of my old stomping grounds, when we look at the top 25, number one, as the Irvine Company is coming to a close, they have two of their villages left. They still rank number one, but just in a very different category, and that is price per square foot. So they do rank number one, and then number two is Porter Ranch, which if you look at what Toll Brothers is doing out there, some very large, very estate-like products, and similar to Irvine in that excellent schools. Both the Irvine Ranch and Porter Ranch have a very high Asian population because of the excellent schools and the great location. Number three is actually the Boulevard. Number four is Central Park. And I'll stop at number five with Three Roots. Three Roots is another big favorite of mine if you haven't seen it. A phenomenal fitness center. I think we've got some pictures in here of that too. But you can see as you go all the way down to number 25, River Terrace in Oregon. Oregon is that's the only community that really placed in Oregon, but that's sort of an anomaly for this top 25 too. So definitely worth a visit. So that's our top for value, and you can actually see where those actually sit on a map kind of throughout the country. So not just the Smile States, we've got 10 trails going up into Seattle. As I mentioned, the one Oregon community. And as you look at Westerly in Denver, we've got 3 of those actually happening in Denver. So you'll see 33% of the highest value MBCs, of course, are where the most expensive land is in markets like California, but 20% are actually in Colorado, and another 16% in Texas, and then randomly some of those are kind of sprinkled throughout. As we look at the Irvine Ranch, just a little bit of highlight on them. They're privately held. They, again, as we mentioned, we're tracking over, it's 1,200, but there's really 900 with sizable units that are left. The Irvine Company has 120,000 acres. I do this little highlight because they are at build out for such a huge master plan. They arguably have one of the best locations. They've been building since 1965. Over half the master plan is open space. I know so many of you are having to face that today. The nearest master plans are 5% or 33% lower in price per square foot. And they do have two remaining villages coming. The last village of Orchard Hills will be opening up this year. And then we also have out in the San Diego Hills area, there's another master plan coming in a couple of years. So kind of fun to see so much history there. And that master plan is still coming out on top, just in a different way. So now we're going to talk about some innovations or trends that drove not just the top 10. So we're going to look back at the top 10, but then we're going to look at some of the big innovations that I think are takeaways from 23 and also things you should be thinking about for 24. So let's look at the top 10. All but two had active adult. So definitely important to think about. I know you have to have a sizable community, but I would tell you anything that has 1,200 units or greater could serve to have active adult, and you'll get out of that community almost, not completely, but almost twice as fast. And why do it? Your 60 plus consumer, they control 53% of the wealth. And they are now finally moving and they are retiring. Another big key trend is so many of them had multiple villages. So Silverleaf doesn't have multiple villages. I think they will actually. And Centera doesn't, but they obviously have several projects actually selling within that. So for the most part, though, all of them had multiple villages. The other big thing when we looked at product lines, even the 5,000 home master plan had 20 plus different product lines. So only the villages had 5 product lines. It is interesting though that they are the fastest selling master plan, but they do have several villages throughout and they are masterful on how they approach the entire process. I could do a 3-hour webinar just on that if anyone's interested. We only had one in the 10 to 20. That was Ontario Ranch, and again, the rest. A lot of product segmentation, which I think you can really do, and frankly, drive higher land residuals, higher IRR, ROI, you name it, by having different product segmentation. All of them but one had attached in their product mix. So for those of you who think you can't put attached in there, we absolutely can. There's some really creative solutions. I will say we have a lot of great product solutions working with architects all over the country that can provide you detached solutions up to 18 to the acre. But when it's appropriate, there are some great attached solutions out there. The other big thing is choosing the top builders. So what we did is we looked at those top 25 and we said which builders are the most prominent in those top 25 master plans. And knowing who to program, where to program, that's something that we spend a lot of time when we're doing master plan studies, is which builder is going to perform the best at what product lines, and quite frankly, who's going to really drive the best value. And of course, sales absorptions are as important to the developer as they are to the home builder. So Lennar comes in at number 1. You can see them kind of across the board in most of the master plans in the top 10. Number 2 is the villages. And then as you go through these from 2 to 10, we've got D.R. Horton, certainly more with their value play, Pulte playing in several different categories, both active adult as well as their conventional stuff. KB Home, not as prominent, but certainly very prominent in Ontario Ranch and Marvita, and Inspirata. Toll Brothers sprinkled throughout, most importantly in Sienna and Nocatee. If you haven't seen Nocatee, one of the coolest master plans I've seen, I just visited that recently. They do such a great job. Number 7, Taylor Morrison. Number 8, TriPoint. Number 9, MI Homes. And of course, number 10, the very last one, Vieira Builders. So those are your top builders for those top master plans. Now I'm just going to touch on some things by generation, just big trends by generation. I'm going to hit these high level. If anybody wants copies of these, I'm happy to send them. But if you look at the top consumers throughout the country, it is largely Gen Y today because they are in family mode. There's a lot of active adult and Gen Y sitting in the Midwest. Northeast is largely active adult, but they are coming down to the Southeast and Florida. California, the same thing. Southwest, they all have a mix of demographics, but this is your top generation today shopping. Some big um, trends resonating with boomers. So highly competitive in all things. So fitness, education, job success, where they live and what they want to live in, super important to them. Again, they control 53% of the wealth. Extreme fitness, health, wellness, again, educational opportunities, social events, people events, alcohol, all that stuff, a big deal for this very social consumer. Um, this generation is actually the first to put aging in place into action. So they're less likely to move on to, assisted living and things like that. It'll be very interesting to see aging in place go to work for that consumer. Um, uh, there have and have nots. So the unfortunate part with this consumer is you have a large group that's very affluent and they have many choices. But don't forget the ones that don't, because this consumer also no longer has pensions like their parents. And so again, looking for the small, very cool solutions. And I think that this consumer is the most likely to do things like co-housing and things like that, because it is a very social consumer. But there are the have and the have nots with this group. Style and design are really significant at any price point for this consumer group. As we look at Gen X, they're seeking life of balance. They're most likely to live in multi-generational households seeking multi-generational solutions or seeking solutions for their bigger families. They want multi-generational communities too. So they're less likely, for example, to do active adult. So that's going to start to shift for this generation. They're moving to more fringe locations so they can get bigger homes because they are keeping some of those generations together. They're most likely to have remote work home solutions or looking for remote home solutions in their home. They're going to retire later in life because they are supporting more family and they aren't quite as wealthy as the boomers. But they are still, for those wealthy and the ones that can afford it, looking for those resort, fast, quick family vacation opportunities to enjoy their big families. They appreciate and they seek digital and digital free environments because they've lived in both analog and non-analog environments. And the key for them is size, value, and family accommodation are the most significant for them at all price points. Gen Y, seeking affordability and space for the growing families. They're moving in or out of states to reach what they want. So not afraid to move at all. It's all about their immediate children, whatever family means to them. I want to underscore that too. But they're very family centric and events and everything as far as a master plan goes, some of the amenities they offer. It's worth commuting for them and they're going to move there for their family. Very tribal with their friends and in their peers. So really wanting to meet more people like them, super creative, very tech savvy. They're uninhibited and not afraid to set their own boundaries either. So again, they work hard, they play hard, but they don't want to fail to that unbalanced work-life habits of their parents. And then life without technology is like life without a car for their parents. So again, everything, it's their right, left hand, and then some. They're all about diversity and inclusion for sure. And last but not least, community is motivated by interaction with friends, family, and very much about experiences. Their whole life is about, experiences versus wealth was a much bigger achievement for their parents. I'm going to end with Gen Z is coming. I could do a whole thing on Gen Z too. We're not going to cover them today because today they're 1% of the consumer coming in the door. But there's a lot to be talked about with Gen Z, and happy to talk about that with anybody who wants more info on that. So feel free to reach out on that one. So big trends, we're going to go through 13 high level trends to think about as we look back at 23 and we look forward. The very first one, it's a big one for me, and it's just the importance of design. So interior first is the most important. Builder packages, I heard this from Laura Cole out at Lakewood Ranch and several others. The builder packages really helped builders kind of streamline sales. I would also tell you, I heard from builders like TriPoint and some of those that said they're actually getting premiums for a pre-spec'd house. And because the packages are almost like a fail-safe design solution. It's helped with sales and it's helped them compete with the resale market, quite frankly, because they could close those homes faster, build them faster, all that stuff. But big factors from a design perspective: light, huge, all age groups. 1,200 to 1,800 square feet, I think, is the key size for 24. Entertainment in all spaces, indoor and out. And of course, we're going to continue to focus on indoor outdoor living. Um, Outside is also important. Think of it as the cover of your book. It's still a really, really big deal. The front door or the outdoor space on the front yard, it's becoming more important than ever, especially for those of us that are working at home more. And I have numbers as low as 17% are going into the office full time these days. That outdoor space, not just in the backyard, but on the front of your home, just to see people, I think it's going to continue to get bigger. And number two, just affordability in all things. So things like no tax states, I think, are a really big deal. Even things like low HOAs, right size, right price. Buy downs are still going to be a thing of the future for sure, even with rates coming down. Consumers, based on our research, and we did a big polls all over the country last June, they want rates under 5%. So the reason I think the new home markets continue to thrive is so many builders have been offering rates under 5% and continuing to fuel that. And we're seeing all those buy downs show up in the resale market now too. So that will continue to be competition for us. Trend number 4, health and wellness. The fitness club has really replaced what we called the old stuffy club, but a fitness club has really replaced what I would call the club. And then as we look at that, work hubs, I think, are also really replacing the club. So again, fitness and sort of that work club experience, I think, is really becoming a much bigger deal than what that grand sort of like wow with the fireplace and lots of chairs that nobody was really ever sitting in. We now want these kind of usable experiences like this. Trend number 6, I would say in all cases, just add water if you can. You're always going to get a premium to actually be on water. It's going to really double your value. And the things like the Crystal Lagoon, I mean, it's such a breathtaking experience. I watched Masterplans double in price in a period of 3 to 4 years with some of these great experiences. I do realize there's cost to this and all of those things, but if you're working with inland locations, certainly Babcock Ranch did it with bodies of water. The Villages has done it with bodies of water. If you look at the top 10 master plans, most of them but one actually all has bodies of water as part of their master plan experience. Trend number 7, giving back really is giving back, and people are looking to their pocketbooks to make up for rising interest rates and higher costs of living and inflation. So anytime you can give back to the customer and things like solar, all things energy consumption, I think we're going to even see the rise in a lot more electric homes, things like that. That's going to continue to come across to smarter, more efficient. So be looking for that in the future as well. Trend number 8, modal variety to me is such a big deal. And again, I'm going back to the fact that so many people are retiring in new locations and we're working at home more, and we want our kids to have more freedom because we're doing so many more things. And that modal variety allows your consumer, their families, the people that are living within this community, just a lot more choices to get around without jumping into a car and starting up a car. There's affordability involved, all kinds of things, but there's all kinds of nice choices I think we can give them. And this is going to continue to evolve over time. As we get to trend number 9, immersive experiences. So when we look at just traditional golf, we know that there is virtual golf, but it's becoming so much more than that. I mean, it's really immersive experiences into sort of the environment. You've got the Van Gogh, and this has been shown all over the country where it just feels like you're inside the art itself. In Korea, they did this large immersive art exhibition where you literally could feel the waves crashing. You could hear the waves coming towards you. And we're going to see so much of this happening. And I really suspect for 2024 and 25, I'm already planning with master plan developers where this stuff is really starting to come into their experiences, whether it's retail or whether it's how they're looking at hotel experiences like the Atari experience coming to Las Vegas. You're going to see a lot more of this. I'm already seeing, music venues starting to shift to this. So much more of this is going to come into not just our lives, but I think you should be thinking about it as you're designing your master plans. And on that note, as we look to social programming, certainly social programming for number 10 is a big deal. That's going to continue to be big. That along with just club connections. But I think we're going to start to see those club connections as we see Gen Y and particularly as Gen Z moves into these master plans. We're going to start to see those club connections and even just how we play shift. So trend number 11 is like digital playgrounds. I mean, now colleges have college scholarships around gaming and things like that. But even things just kind of playing in the parks. I mean, we had Pokemon Go back in the day. That was certainly a great thing. But think about programming your parks to one, get kids who like to game, go outside, but also you can actually change that experience. You can continue to reinvent that. And that can really be something fun that you can update regularly. They can sign up for awards online. You can make them educational. There's so much I think you can do in what is their world today. They don't know anything different, and continue to push them outdoors at the same time. I think there's tremendous opportunities that really haven't come to fruition as much as they could in the future. So there's even play spaces inside that club room that you can really do some fun things if it is important for you, to keep them indoors or keep them in safe experiences, depending on where the location of your master plan is. But this is a fun piece where you actually can create anything you want to and give them the space to do that with their friends. Last but not least, this is truly a digital playground. This was actually done in New Zealand. It was a startup, kind of GEO AR game. And they created these augmented reality playgrounds where kids could actually go and play and experience different things, but super fun and super different. Uh, Number 12, I always want to underscore there's nothing that replaces kind of the in-person experiences. So having those events in person, coming up with reasons to engage, creating ambassadors within your community to lead the future of those master plans. That never goes away despite all the digital stuff we just talked about. And then last but not least, and I want to underscore this, I had so many great things come in from a marketing strategy perspective, from Dana Kovac at Kovac Marketing and Amy Levi at Strada and David Miles at Miles Brand. I mean, there's so many great things. I almost feel like it deserved a completely different webinar. So we are going to do something different on that to share all the great things that came out of that. But I would just share in all the things that were shared, we're looking at how we talk to our customers so much differently than we did in the past, and finding great success with that. So we'll actually come back with another webinar specific to that in the next month or two for sure. So what's next? Let's talk about what's going on in the future. When we look at sort of the top master plans, you'll actually see we have 101 plan master plans that are shown as upcoming master plans. None of those are actually in the Northwest or the Midwest, which is kind of surprising. I mean, there's such a huge opportunity for some of these great master plans and plenty of land in the Midwest, but certainly they've sort of been abandoned when we look at the top master plans. And if you look at the 23 plan master plans with 5,000 plus units, again, you can see those, again, mostly in the Smile States, including Denver. We've got one up there actually in the Northeast. But for the most part, I would tell you there's a great opportunity for anybody. When you look at where the wealth is, look at the wealth when you look at, for example, Minnesota and the entire Northeast. I know the Northeast is much harder to find land, but there certainly suggests there's some great opportunities up in Minnesota and up and down some of those categories. When you look at where most of the development's going and where most of the development is just completely absent. So a couple of things as we look at some of the future MPCs that I thought were interesting. Teravalis, hope I'm not like killing that name. It's going to have 100,000 homes coming. It's actually in Buckeye, Arizona. It's phenomenal planning for this one. It's definitely going to, I think, change this entire area. Big job center coming with it too. So super, super interesting. The next one is Mayfair, or I'm sorry, Legacy Hills in Salina, Texas. It's got 7,000 homes, estimated to open in 2024. We've also got Mayfair that's coming. It's got about 6,000 homes. It's got a really neat core center to it too. Lots of interesting things coming there. In New Braunfels, Texas, kind of straggle, sitting in between San Antonio and Austin. You've got Windler and Aurora, which is sort of on the heels of as you start to see Payne and Prairie close out. This will be a really neat master plan coming out in Aurora, Colorado. They've got about 5,000 plus homes, grand opening in 2024. So be looking for that one. Fields in Frisco, over 10,000 homes there, but 11,200 opening or it just opened actually in June of 2023. But I think that one's going to start to rise. You're going to start to see some of these players coming up into the top 10 in 2024, which is why we're starting to share them with you. And then last but not least, we have Reunion, Texas, and that's got over 10,000 homes too. So some of these master plans, I think you're going to start to see those coming up in the next year or two in the top master plans. There's a lot more coming. As we shared, we have over 100,000 different master plans that are potentially coming. So we'll see how that goes. And with that, I'm going to take a deep breath, turn it over to Tim Sullivan, and we're going to share what's coming up next for master plan.
Wow, way to go, Mal. And got a couple things for you at the end, but I know we have one or two things still to address. Ladies and gentlemen, know that we are taking very seriously what we can learn from community development and specifically master plans. And this gives you a sense for what we're going to curate as we look forward over the next 3 quarters. We've got the top amenity preferences. And by the way, I've seen a number of your questions, ladies and gentlemen. We will be digging more deeply into some of these things. Gordon, I know you even asked the question about, are we capable of breaking out by segment? Absolutely, we can do that.
Totally.
And also, Molly, an interesting question about the evangelical element, bringing in a cornerstone of a community such as a megachurch and so forth.
Sure.
We will keep an eye on that because certainly in the southern states, that could be a larger portion of what's brought. But I can guarantee you, it is a consideration. It has been for a millennial for community development. Where are the churches? Which ones are they? Because they're magnets. We'll
Well, we've
also
certainly seen that on the Mormon side too, right? And obviously in Salt Lake and Jordan with Daybreak and some of that stuff. So certainly there's some great examples there too.
no doubt about it. And Molly, I love that you just said, and I made reference to it earlier, for the second, or really it's the third bullet you look at, Tom at MBCs by region and what their differences are. I love that you brought up the Minnesota concept because Minneapolis is a very solid market. And there are a lot of people that don't want to move to the warmer climates, don't want to move to the coast.
Oh,
And
for sure.
what does that mean for opportunities? And then please, guys, if you haven't attended Future Place, think about it because it's more than just master plans. It's really the way to develop anything better. And you're going to hear from the best minds of the industry. And Molly and I and a whole team of us, Kyle Zier, Ryan Early, and a whole bunch of others will be focused on published research around the MPC that will be ultimately documenting the elements that we're talking about here. So that's what's coming up and want to make sure you know that. And then Mal, let's also remind everybody, next slide, that we've got a couple of things from our research that we are documenting through Enterprise. I mentioned it earlier. I just want to drive it home. Mal, if you would take us home, but also pause because I have a couple things for you at the very end.
You bet. I just want to remind everybody how we do all of this is not just with the help of Kyle and Ryan and all these great people that we have on the ground doing this research, but we also have this database that can be at your fingertips too. So we had some more questions from different people. I'll certainly respond to those offline, but you too can answer so much of this with the database. I've used it for things like just looking at it by region, like who are the top developers, who are the top NPCs. You can even get down to like, are there dog parks and how many dog parks are there? All that stuff. You can get into the weeds if you really want to from an NPC standpoint. And again, people like Tim and I are here as well to help you out in any way possible. And then, Tim, do you want to remind everybody about the events and do a quick close at the very end too, just to remind everyone there's so much more coming.
Absolutely. Please meet us at Build to Rent. And there's a whole bunch of new stuff that's happening. There are deals being done, and there are actually capital partners that are still active in the space. You'll
For
meet some
sure.
of them if you come and see us. Builder 100, I mentioned, it's the preeminent get together. It's our 35th annual, and it's leadership and operations and product and big thinking. And then Future Place, we've talked about it almost incessantly. Join us there because that's how we're going to figure out the better places to build. Now, Mal, before we go, let's put that up there so everybody knows. We will post the recording within 24 hours. And Mal, we still have a minute or two, and there's a couple things that I pulled from today, and I want to see if I'm missing anything. And I'm going to summarize it
Sure.
using your numerical summaries. I've got 5 things that I pulled from today. First of all, point number one, the highest price per square foot. I love that analysis. We don't look at it enough. And note that Molly said the single most important thing. Land is the biggest component of that value. However, she pointed out that there's a bunch of other locations that are being rewarded for placemaking, whether it's because
For
of
sure.
water and segmentation. So that price per square foot matters, land matters, but you can change your future by creating a great place. So that's number one. And Mal, we've been talking about this now for quite a while. And of course, the lagoon makers, Crystal Lagoons, of course, is one. Water is the new gold, and
It
it can
is.
transform any place. So that's number two. Number three, I really like the fact that we're showing the builders and who's aligned with master plans because you know who's already ultimately understanding the value. However, if you're a builder and you're not in master plans, I encourage you to think about it strongly because there's an extra level of comfort, an extra level of risk abatement by being there. And if you're a community developer and there's certain builders you admire that aren't in your community, that's ultimately nirvana for Molly and me because that's how we enhance segmentation, new ideas, new concepts. That's number three. Molly, you used the term immersive. This is point number four. And I want to butcher or paraphrase a quote from Maya Angelou that said, people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember the way you made them feel.
Oh,
And this
totally.
immersive element. I mean, Mal, when you were talking about that, when people are immersed in 3D experiences and they're physically active, boy, oh boy, does that make a difference. And that drives home a memory. So I love the immersive element. And last point, Mal, the Gen Y. The fact that we're paying attention to it, your quote was, 1% of activity is coming from Gen Y. It won't stay that
Gen
low
Z.
for very
Gen
long.
Z, just so you
Oh,
know.
Gen
Yeah.
Z, I beg your pardon,
Yeah.
Gen Z.
No problem.
It, and it won't stay that way for very long. So we've got our eyes on Gen Z. What else would you add before we wrap it up?
Tim, I think the most important thing is the one point you made about how it makes you feel. And so I love that comment. What a great comment, because that's really the world we're going into when you look at sort of, I hate to call it this, but like the death of office and the changes in retail and some of the challenges out there, it's all converting to experiences or they won't come. And so it's such a big part of, I think, what we do, in addition to home is where we spend all of our time. It's becoming such a bigger focus for us than ever before. So getting that design of the home to really rebalance for this new lifestyle that we're all living, but creating experiences, I couldn't have said it better. It's perfect.
Love it, Mo. Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate you being here. Please reach out if we can help you with information or good thinking going forward with new development, or you want to join us at our conferences. They really are a heck of a lot of fun. Stay safe, be good. We'll see you all in a quarter. And keep in mind, we're going to have some new information for you. And Molly, thank you. Job well done.
Thank you.
Take
Take
care.
care,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye.